Hello everybody and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. It's been a long time since we've seen the bench this clear and this clean, mainly because we've been focusing quite a bit on the e-waste systems that we've come across, and everything from discovering the e-waste systems and going through them, and really inspiring quite a bit of memories, which is what I try to do on this channel, is bring all this old retro tech to everybody, and they can go, oh, I had one of those, or that case brings back lots of memories for me, or I did this when. So and then taking those systems and doing and working with them to try to restore them to their old or former glory, I guess. So today I figured what we would do is, I spent some time looking through some of my storage and some things that I had, and I came across this that I had from 2002, 2003. This is a Dell laptop that I had purchased back in that era for university. So I'd like to bring this to everybody, and let's get right into it. And here we are with our Dell Inspiron, or Inspiron, depending on how you like to pronounce it, 5100 series laptop. Now, I classified this laptop as a desktop replacement laptop just because I was looking for something at the time that was, had a decent performance for a laptop. And the laptops of the era, there were so many changes, going through at the time, so many upgrades and all those things. And, we were knocking on the door of mobile processors were starting to come out, and, the different voltages and things like that to, more scaled back processors, but they were lighter machines and things like that. And the really unique thing about this particular machine that I love is, love and hate, I'll just explain why, is that it's a desktop processor that's in this. So it's actually a desktop Pentium 4 processor that's inside this machine. Now, that can obviously cause the machine to be a little thicker, of course. Adequate cooling needs to happen, and all that. So we're going to get into that here in a moment, but let's kind of just look through the machine as well. So, Dell definitely had an interesting design when they came out with this machine. And so let's bring it up in the front here. So we have our front latch, which opens up the front lid, and you can see that it's quite thick, or so many inches thin, as they say. But yeah, again, there's a lot of stuff housed, I should say, inside this system in terms of specs. So we have our front LED indicators that have our power, hard drive activity, and charging activity as well. And then we have our two you can see through here where our speakers are mounted inside. Now, I'll talk about it in a little bit, but I've never come to know this machine as a multimedia powerhouse by any means. It definitely tried to be in terms of video and other things, but when it comes to this, the sound quality wasn't always that great. And so I'm just going to go, clockwise here, and clockwise. Okay, so on this side, we have our removable batteries. So, you could have extra batteries on the go. The machine is quite heavy as it stands. I can only imagine carrying around extra batteries. At the time it was already bad enough carrying school books and backpacks and all that stuff, and then having this inside the machine or in the bag, and then carrying an extra battery. Even the power for this machine was quite heavy. And, I have a replacement one here right now. So, technology's changed a bit. Much lighter, but again, pretty hefty. And we have our dial-up modem in here, our 56K modem. And, at the time it was great. You just plug in, dial up, and, go on about it. And then we have our exhaust fan for our processor in here. So, it's not quite a large fan. It's large enough for what it is, but this can get quite toasty for sure. And then we have our Kensington lock port here. I just noticed a little bit of damage in the corner of my machine here. It just looks like one of the hinges is coming out there a little bit. So some work needs to be done to correct that, apparently. Okay, in the back here we have our heatsink. Looks like you can see right in there the grills, the heatsink for the fan. I mean, it's fairly clean. I keep this machine pretty clean even since new, and I like to keep most of my stuff that way, especially when I'm keeping it for whatever reason. Then we also have the power connector here. That's again just the power cord that I had mentioned earlier. Our S-Video out, which was also a cool feature to have. I mean, we didn't have any sort of other connectivity, but being able to connect to a TV, for example, at the time, things like that is really cool, depending on what kind of hardware you had running. Then we have a couple of USB 2 ports here. I mean, nothing fancy outside of that. And we have our SVGA out to external monitor or whatever the source is, projector, things like that. And then we have our 1394 connection. I never did use that technology when I just never felt the need to. And then we have our Ethernet port here as well. I believe this is a 10100 card. I'll verify when we turn the machine on and go from there. So on the other side, we have our PCM CIA slot. Now, it doesn't have the Type 2, which allows you to have, I think it's Type 2, correct me if I'm wrong, to have the dual double height PCM CIA cards or dual cards, just as access to the one. And then we have our headphones and our microphone jacks. I mean, nothing fancy here. I mean, not even color-coded, for goodness sakes. No, I'm just kidding. And then over here, we have our CDRW drive and our DVD-ROM drive. So, I mean, having a machine back at that time, portable machine that can play DVDs, but also be a CDRW was really handy. And, having that in this machine. Now, that said, it's not a modular drive. It's not something that can be removed. Some of the newer technologies that were coming out allowed you to, hot swap this or shut it down and swap out for, another battery. Or if you had a different type of drive, you could remove this one and pop it in. Now, mind you, this can be removed, but again, it just takes a screw and all that stuff. But it just wasn't hot swappable for what it was. Okay, and then on the other side of the machine, we have, just to talk about the user accessibility, which is pretty cool to be able to, perform upgrades or do different things to this machine. So, I mean, you had your user accessible memory here to upgrade the memory if needed. And required. You have your latch here for your battery to remove the battery, and the battery itself is pretty hefty. It had to be to power the machine. It is a Pentium 4 desktop processor that's in this machine, and the hardware around it supporting that. So it definitely used a bit of juice, especially with the DVD ROM drive there as well. If you wanted to watch a movie by any means, we definitely use quite a bit of power there. And then we have another accessible bay here, and that's for our wireless LAN card and what have you, and our networking. And so the machine itself, I mean, in terms of looks, it's not terrible. Remember, we're looking back in 2002, 2003 for this particular machine, and keep in mind, I mean, laptops were coming out all over, and I was a huge ThinkPad guy. I still was at the time. And, but when I had an opportunity to get this through Dell, I definitely took advantage of it. Now, it was quite expensive at the time. I think it was around $3,000 or so Canadian. And, you could, take that and do inflation on it and what have you. But, for what it was quite expensive. But again, you're getting a machine that is sporting desktop performance. So we have our power switch here. We have our Dell info button. So that was similar to what like a ThinkPad would have for the Think button and things like that to bring up, Dell proprietary menus up on the screen. And so very handy if you needed quick access to certain things. I don't know how customizable that was, but it was something that was there. And then, of course, we have our num lock key, our cap lock key, and scroll lock, and all those good things. Now, the keyboard itself, I mean, it's okay. Great, pretty good tactile feedback on it. And I mean, it's a Dell keyboard. I mean, I am partial to ThinkPad keyboards. I've always have been. However, these are definitely definitely good. And I mean, the fact that we're sitting here talking about it 20 years later is telling me that, this had heavy use at the time, and so that it's still pretty good. And then we have our touchpad here with our trackpad, and our mouse buttons associated with the trackpad. And if you notice, Dell's did eventually come with it, but the track point is not here with the 2 keys that would be here, similar to what a ThinkPad would have. I know Dell came out with them. Now, quite frankly, I don't use that often, so it's kind of welcome not having it, to be honest. Only because it cleans up this area a bit and makes this fairly simplistic. And you have nice hand rests here as well, palm rests. So you have lots of room here to rest your hands. So it's not fatigue, even though there's quite a bit of jump here because of the thickness of the laptop off of the desk. You're not resting your arms like this when you're trying to type. If you're closer to the front, you're actually resting them on the machine itself. So it gives you that support as well. And then we have our design for Windows XP and our Pentium 4 logo, which is clearly rubbed off, but it's designed for it. That's what counts. Okay, let's adjust this a little more so we can see the machine and get this all fired up here. So I think what we'll do is turn it on and go into the CMOS real quickly and just preparing to enter setup. So I mean, this is your typical Dell kind of interface here. I'm just going to zoom in on the actual screen so everybody can see what's going on here. So Dell Computer Corporation, so they're very proprietary, gives all your information, and it just kind of shows all the different things. Now, I mean, the date is incorrect, obviously, because of the CMOS battery is probably dead, long gone, and that's fine. Then it shows all the different components that are in here, which is really cool to see as part of the machine. So we have our Pentium 4, 2.66 gigahertz, and it had the ability to go to 2.8 gigahertz, I believe, if you wanted to customize this in a later model. And then our level 2 cache is 512, and then we have 512 megabytes of RAM installed on this. And I'm not 100% sure about how much you could upgrade this to. If you could upgrade it to a gig, I'd have to look at the specs of the machine and the configurations and voltages and things like that. But I something's telling me you could, but I mean, 512 is a safe bet for what this is. And then we had our dedicated graphics, our ATI Radeon 7500. And it's showing 64 megabytes of RAM in this. To be honest with you, I thought it was 32 megabytes. So, I mean, that's saying something as well. So you can see how it's really focusing in on trying to be a portable, desktop replacement laptop or notebook PC. So, yeah, so it's a 15-inch XGA monitor here. But again, I believe the panel is the 1024 by 768, but we'll have to see that resolution. Audio is Sigmatel 9750. I believe that supports the AAC 97 codecs and what have you, all those good things. And we have our Broadcom Polaris modem controller. Primary hard drive is 60 gig, and this would have been an upgraded model. I believe 40 gig is what was going around at the time. So it's nice to see the 60 gig in there. And then our modular bay, our CDRW and DVD, which we chatted about there. And then, of course, we have service tag information and all that stuff. Okay, so, I mean, this is where you go into, change your date and all those good things. So let's go Alt-P just to see what's here. Okay, on this page, we have the boot order for the machine. So right now it's set to the floppy drive. If it had one, it does not, but, but it has the ability. And then we have the internal hard drive, USB storage device, and then the CD-ROM drive. Now, I would argue that, it'd be swapped around a bit for what we're trying to do, though. We can skip through that. And then our boot post is minimal, just minimal configuration, needs to boot. It's trying to be as efficient as possible. It tells you about this information here. Adapter warnings enabled, our internal modem, LAN controller, all that good stuff. And then we have a wireless card that's in here as well, which is really, really awesome. And then our battery status is really cool to see inside of a CMOS. Again, the Dell interface. I don't believe this at all, that this is correct, because I'm pretty confident that the battery in this machine is not holding any charge. But, well, we can always test it out and see. And then our brightness of our machine So whether it's on battery or if you're plugged into AC, what you do that, what it connects to. And then our primary password, our min password, hard drive password, so some security, and then we're back to the main page. So let's escape out of there, and we're going to discard any changes. So we didn't make any, at least I don't think I did. And we're going to start Windows normally because that was just because it was fussing that I had reset the machine earlier without actually doing what I should have done for it. So let's get Windows all started up here. And here we are to the desktop. Nothing like the good old Windows XP theme and the beautiful bliss on the desktop. I mean, for a machine of its age, the quality of the LCD is fairly good. And that's something that drew me to it as well. I mean, there are a lot of reviews about this machine, different reviews, but there always seemed to be more pros than cons for this type of machine. The cons were generally focused on the heft of the machine and how heavy it is. But in terms of performance, I mean, this will give good run for its money for the machine itself. Let's just go into Device Manager real quickly, just to kind of go through what's there on this machine and see. So we have Windows XP with Service Pack 3 already installed. This is the Home Edition. I mean, Professional Edition would give you a few more features, of course, depending on what you're aiming for. And, this was designed to be entered into the home-based market, the consumer market, not necessarily to the business market. They had a different line from that, Dell did. And so when it comes to this machine itself is, desktop replacement, as I mentioned. So they were really encouraging the consumer market to step away from the towers, the desktop type form factors, and jump into machines such as this. So registered Dell Inspiron 5100, just generic information. And then we have a summary that's an Intel Pentium 4, 2.66 gigahertz at 512 megs of RAM. So that's really good. Again, I'd be curious to see if we can upgrade that to the 1 gig. All right, it's complaining that I can't connect to my wireless network because I'm not allowing it to. I'm being a bully in the China, not allowing it to connect. So we have our batteries, just our standard stuff there, nothing exciting. And our computer, just advanced configuration, PC, and all that good stuff. So our disk drive, that's the hard drive itself. That's the 60 gig hard drive that we mentioned earlier. So nice to see that in there. And then we have our mobility Radeon 7500. And again, I was not familiar with this in terms of how many megabytes of memory that it came with. And the fact that it has 64 megabytes of memory is really, really, really cool. And then you can see that it's 1024 by 768. So yes, I was correct on that. That's running at 32-bit color. I mean, we're not going to fiddle with that right now, but that's really awesome. And it allows multiple monitors just because of the outputs on the back of the machine. And then we have our DVD CD-ROM drives. That's our CDRW and our DVD drive combo, which is again, I thought that was really cool to have that DVD drive to be able to watch movies and be able to burn CDs. And burning CDs by that time were really commonplace. And so we have our IDE controllers, which is fine, our 1394 controller, keyboard, mice, just our standard stuff. And then our modem, that's our V.92 56K modem that's built in, which is good. And we have our monitors, so it's just, default monitors, but also our digital flat panel, again, confirming the resolution. Then we have our network adapters. So we have a 1394 net adapter, our Broadcom 440X 10100 integrated controller. So that's our Ethernet controller. And then our Dell True Mobile 1300 WLAN mini PCI card. So that's our wireless card. And yeah, I mean, if I just, get a separate network up here, we can get this definitely on the network. And our PCM CIA card adapter, pretty straightforward. Our processors, which we talked about, which is our Pentium 4, 2.6 gigahertz. And here's our sound controller. So again, I'm not in love with the sound. I mean, it comes with the requirements, what was needed to keep this machine going and, play the games I was playing at the time. But again, I was more focused on the work aspect of it, and that's why I had purchased this machine. But again, there's games and things like that I had at the time as well. And this served the purpose. Just, I wouldn't use the speakers for it. They're quite choppy, and I'm going to show that to you in a minute. I prefer to use headsets and things like that. And then we have our system devices and our USB, and that's our USB 2. So we'll get out of there as well. So under games, we're just going to go into good old pinball. yeah, so you can see that, you can hear, I should say, the sound is quite, let's go full screen. The sound is quite, well, weak, I would say, for what it is. And yeah, before I do that, though, I'm just going to turn the volume up just a little bit, just so, because I know it's down there quite a bit there. But even that, like it's very hollow, is how I can explain it. Just, I mean, they're laptop speakers. I mean, we take for granted today the newer laptops today that have much better sound built in, but again, at the time, there wasn't quite a bit going on there. Good old Space Cadet 3D pinball. I mean, it serves the purpose for sure, but it's definitely maxing out. Depending on the range of the sound. Come on. Yeah, depending on the range of the sound, it starts to top out a bit, and when it does, it gets a bit staticky on the front there. You can definitely hear it's struggling a bit. Okay, we're not all here to see my talents in 3D pinball. We are going to continue on with this machine. And yeah, I mean, again, that's just to show the sound quality of the machine itself. And I mean, it was adequate. It's what it did. I mean, there were, you plug in headphones and you'd be good to go again. Okay, so I think the next logical step that we should do with this machine is, now that we've tried out some of the sound, is try out some games just to see if they work on this. And I don't know if they're going to work or not, but let's just see. So I'm going to play some Unreal. I have some volume. You can hear that sound. That's very, very hollow. But again, going back 20 years, I mean, it's running fairly smoothly. Let's just see what video options we have for this. So the resolution. Let's go 800 by 600, see what happens. Oh, I think that's pretty darn good so far. Okay, let's see if we can play some Unreal. Okay, so I mean, the texture mapping isn't so bad so far. Just hear all the screams. Get used to the controls here. I mean, so far, I mean, it's I mean, is it the best? I mean, the fan just kicked on here right now. Blow a nice hot desktop Pentium processor air out. I think overall it's not too terrible. I mean, for what it is, I mean, it's running very smooth. I mean, it's definitely playable. There's a bit of slowdown in the game there just a moment ago. Yeah, there's a little bit of jumpiness. I mean, if you remember when we had played this using the, this was the room that, using the 3DFX card. This is the room that we had the glass floor in, and it was definitely, you could actually see the character when you look down, and you don't see that here. obviously because of we're not using 3DFX technology, but I mean, hey, I mean, if you want to play this game, you certainly can. No, I think this is definitely playable. Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, the sound, I think my biggest complaint is the sound, the crackling is there, you know? Well, that doesn't sound good for them. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's fairly good for this type of game. I mean, the computer is running very well. I mean, that fan is just going, so definitely be mindful of that. I mean, it is a desktop replacement computer using a desktop Pentium processor. We have the performance, however, it is using other resources to keep that performance going. You know, for example, the cooling and the power, etc. So, no, I definitely give this a thumbs up. I would definitely spend quite a bit of time playing this on this laptop for sure. And I don't disagree. I think this would be definitely playable. Now, let's see what other trouble we can get into with another game. Let's try Age of Empires 3. What's the worst can happen? So far, so good. So I think that the video playback was pretty good. I think the graphics look pretty darn good.
Move the crossbow to the forward walls to attack the Janissaries. Defend the fort at all costs.
Wow. Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty smooth for what it is. So I would say that this is another success, but you can see that the system itself seems to be working fairly well. And now let's go and move on to another game and see if that worked for us. And as promised, we have another game. I figured we would pull out Unreal Tournament 2004, very era specific for this system. And definitely we'll test some of the video card action that we have, as 3D accelerator is required, and it is dedicated graphics. It does require 32 megabytes of memory. The graphics card has 64, so definitely nice to see. And then we'll do single player, do a quick game here just to see. Create a new profile. Sure, I'm Jacob today. Hey Jacob, how you doing, buddy? Great. Let's see what happens. It's been a long time again since I've played this, so bear with me. This is probably in-game movies, but just the same, it's...
the Landry Corporation's Unreal Tournament enters its 12th year.
I think it's pretty good. And again, we're only doing this to test this laptop to see, was it worth getting? for the games that were coming out. What was your ideal use case of this particular machine? And so far, so good. Yeah, I don't think it's too bad.
Play.
Come on, we're all friends here. I'm just looking at the graphics. I'm just caught up with that right now. Oh, I think he's over here. Yep. Oh, I was killed. But look at that. I mean, I think that's pretty darn smooth. Well, I would say that, I would say that's pretty much a nice success, to be honest. Apparently, I'm... Leave me alone. All right, enough of that. Oh, come on. He's taunting me now. He's taunting me. There we go. He was just taunting me. I couldn't just end it there. All right, we're done. Yeah, so, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, this machine for a desktop replacement, I call it the little big laptop that could. Again, like I said, I mentioned to you earlier that I had purchased this machine back in 2003, 2004. Sorry, I know I said something differently, but I had to correct myself. However, it runs pretty darn well. It's very snappy. I will say though, the heft of the machine, do I think that because that's what I remember today and feeling it now? Maybe. But I will say that, I'm saying that back then, I may not have complained about the size of the machine and, sporting, the beautiful screen here, the resolution that we have, the nice, the speed of the machine itself, and not to mention, some desktop PCs were having trouble competing with some of the specs in this at the time, depending on what range you went on. And to have this in a mobile platform with a decent battery life, with a DVD player and a CD burner and the dedicated graphics card and a decent screen and Wi-Fi and internet connectivity and the modem, and you go on. I mean, I think that's pretty darn good for what you got. I mean, yeah, it was around $3,000 back then, which is quite a bit of money today, but, you did it. And when you did it, you benefited from it in the sense that you got what you pay for. And I think it was pretty good. Now, today's standard, it's still playable today. 20 years later, I'm sitting here with you, telling you all about it and playing these beautiful games on it. I know it was just a few minutes of gaming, but heck, I want to get lost in some of these games later on. And I will say, some of the changes I would make, these speakers, don't love the speakers. I've said that from the minute we started this video. Not a fan, have never been a fan. And I feel like we could possibly modify them. Who knows? Could we do something? Not sure. Yes, you have headphones and there's Bluetooth adapters you can connect to these, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing I would do to this is specifically around the hard drive itself. So 20 years later, this hard drive is starting to sound like a pacemaker. There's some clicks and pops going on, and I'm not confident if I remember if that's something that should be happening. So I would definitely take the time to upgrade this to an SSD to get it in there. And I think there's also some compact flash options out there as well. Not compact flash, but different adapters. But again, I think overall, it's a pretty good looking machine. I feel it's very comfortable. During the entire time we've been running this, now the palm rests are pretty darn warm, I will tell you. And the heat that's coming out of the machine is pretty darn hot. But that's what you have to accept when you get a machine like this. Overall, I give it a thumbs up. Definitely pleased with the machine. Even 20 years later, I'm happy to dig it back out and fire it up and get it going. And I feel really good that it's still going. And it's a piece of memory, a piece of history for my life. And I'm sure everybody out there in the Retro Recall land definitely has one like that in their lives. That said, I hope you liked today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the channel. Really helps out. Hit the notification button. And always working on new content, always working on new material. So for now, we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.